Hi everyone, welcome to this demo where I show you this cat eye and cat profile. I've already created the outline and we're going to start with the darker areas of his stripes and other dark details. I put in one stripe back to front. You should keep to the direction of his fur really, but because it's pan pastels I can correct that later. Next I start to sponge in the mid-tone areas of his fur, trying to keep to the fur direction and the general colour of the darker tones of the fur. The lower part under his chin is slightly lighter, so I'm now filling in this area with a lighter pastel colour. I'm just colouring the darker parts of his nose. Now to the first part of his eyes. I just love this cat's eyes. They're an amazing colour and so expressive. That's what drew me to this picture in the beginning. I'm using a lovely turquoise blue pan pastel. Then lightening parts of the eye by adding white to the blue and blending them in. If you need to avoid smudging, pastel mat comes with sheets between each of the layers of the pastel mat. You can use that to rest your hand on. I'm actually being quite careful here and not putting my hand down. Next I do above the eye. Here I'm continuing to build up the layers with pan pastels and soft sponges. Now the lighter sections start to go in, first at the back with a lighter yellow colour, and then towards the front with his nose and mouth with white. Now leading to the back area of his face with cream. I don't actually have any cream, so I'm blending the white in with yellow. I'm making sure I work to the direction of his fur. Pan pastels create a lovely soft background and they blend beautifully. Now the lighter area around his eyes go in and the lighter strands above his nose. I'm trying not to cover all the paint below. Now the underlayer of his nose goes on. Here I'm using Carbothello by Stablo. I've only got the 12 box set, although I do have others at a different brand. I'm also darkening up his stripes. I'm also re-establishing all the other darker areas along the edge of his nose and the spots on his mouth, although I'm not making them full size yet. Now I'm establishing the lighter areas of his fur. I do this by putting small marks, but not all in exactly the same direction, so they look more natural. Unfortunately, the lighter areas aren't actually white, so I have to blend them down slightly because I don't actually have the exact coloured pencil. I also blend them in slightly so they're not so sharp, because this area is quite soft. Now putting in some more dark areas with the soft sponge and pan pastels, and doing the whiter highlights around his eyes. Here you can clearly see his fur, so I won't be blending that. Back to the darker parts again because his fur isn't all one solid colour. I'm speeding up this bit because you don't need to see every single line. Now I'm working on his nose and putting in some pan-pastel, softer, darker colour. And doing the same with other areas of his face. Just covering the brown with the white specks of his fur. If you're having any difficulty getting the white on top of the brown, there could be a few different reasons. I find that if I've put too much pan-pastel on, the light colours won't go on, and also it does depend on the pencil or the type of pastel you're using on top. Some will go on top and others won't, and then others blend, so just be aware. I then do the same with the darker colours. Here I'm working between the two colours. I'm now using soft sponge and pan pastels mixed together to create a soft background. I don't put the background in until now because pan pastels can be quite smudgy and it could affect the fur. The only trouble with doing it like this is obviously it changes the colours slightly, or the colours that you see don't look quite the same. Pan pastels blend beautifully on the actual paper, so you don't have to mix them beforehand. You might need to do more than one layer to create a softer effect. If you're having any difficulty, pan pastels do supply a medium to make blending easier. It's called Colourless Blender. I use this sometimes because it feels very scrapey against the pastel mat. Doing this really brings out his image. You do need to go right up to the edge because I have almost finished the cat. Just blend them very gently. Because I've added another layer to the centre panel of his fur, having to re-establish his spots, they look quite harsh and will need to be worked in with other colours of his fur. I'm doing the white on the edges of his mouth so that his mouth lines don't look so harsh. I blend it in slightly to make his fur softer. Now adding lighter parts with the sponge, blending it in and adding detailed fur with a white pencil, making his fur seem more natural by going into the darker areas so that it's not all one solid colour. Again, blending very slightly so that the fur is softer. Now I'm adding the darker details around his mouth and blending because under his mouth is very soft. Now for some final highlights of his eyes to make them pop. I'm filling in some more fur detail above his eye at the back.